even when we talk to people about their different favorite scenes, it's always for like a wildly different reason, whether it's just something that they can't get out of their head all these years later, or it's something that they quote all the time, or something that they just cry every time they watch it, or whatever. It's just everyone has a different reason why they love their favorite scene, and everyone has a different reason why they love Titanic.
Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspin and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic Movie Diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Actors, historians, authors, descendants and fans come here to talk about Titanic. This is your first class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson Aspin, and it's time for Titanic Talk. And as you know, Titanic Talk is the companion, I'm so excited, a companion podcast to Alexandra Boyd's documentary, Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries. So our guests today are not only in the documentary, but they are uniquely qualified to talk about James Cameron's 1997 epic Titanic film. So Alexandra, will you do the honors to introduce your co-stars from the documentary? Our co-stars.
Yes, our co-stars, because we're all in it. Yes, it's Brittany Butler and Ethan Brehm, who I found by way of their amazing podcast, which is going literally, does what it says on the tin. It goes through Titanic scene by scene. Brittany and Ethan, I'm going to say hello and welcome so we can get straight into talking about your process. Welcome to Titanic Talk.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm looking at all our faces and I'm realizing that it's probably been quite more than a year since we recorded you for Ship of Dreams.
Yeah.
But in that time, we have all gathered about ourselves, all of these people, all of us who just love to talk about this ship, whether it's the film or the costumes or James Cameron or the history, and people who are descended from people who were actually on the ship. And I still have to sort of go, how did we get here? And I know how we did. It's because everyone just is, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but it's passion, isn't it? It's passionate about this story. And even though you've told your story in the documentary, Brittany, tell us a little bit about how you found this film. It was your mum, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. So so I feel like I have like the pictures laying around like right here. Um so I first heard about it because my mom came home from the movie theater back in 97 or 98, and I had a babysitter and she came walking in the house and she was still emotionally moved by it. And this is all the way on the ride home from the movie theater already. And she's walking in the front door and she just sort of looks at me and loses it again. And she just starts crying. And I went up to her and I was like, "What's wrong?" And all she could say was just that the movie was so good through tears. And then that just immediately ignited an interest in the movie for me. And I'm 5. And I just asked over and over and over and over and over again if I could see the movie, until they eventually let me watch it on VHS when it came out. And I just became obsessed. And I have this little cutout picture here of me.
Oh,
That's supposed to be me as Rose failing with that red wig, but
no.
and that's my cousin as Hercules.
It's priceless. I think we have a photograph of you also on the prow of a ship with your arms out in the classic
Yep.
pose.
Yep.
Yes.
And I got where is it? And I got
Yes,
my
that's
necklace
it.
there. Yep.
With your heart of the ocean, so cute.
Yep. Heart of the ocean
Oh,
ring now.
rude not to.
And you've got the tattoo.
I do. Yep.
Make It Count, isn't that right?
Make it count.
You've got Make It Count. Now, Ethan, do you have any ink on your body as it relates to the Titanic?
No, I don't actually.
Yet,
Not
yet.
yet. Yeah, I'm
We need
I
a
think I'm gonna
Titanic
have
tattoo artist. That's what we need.
yeah, I think I'm just gonna have Jack and Rose on the bow on just across my
Your whole
back,
back.
just my, up and down. Yeah, my next
Oh
one.
yeah, from yeah, or a Jack and Coke. That would be
They'll be
something else.
holding Jack and Coke, I think. Yeah.
And how did you two? Because you all four of us are in different states of America in this great country of ours. But how did you two initially connect?
So I have a blog that I've been running for like a decade now, and I initially reviewed every episode of my favorite TV show, and it was one
Which
of
is
Brittany's, Even Stevens, old Disney Channel show, and it was one of Brittany's favorite shows, and she left a comment on my article, basically just we went back and forth, corresponded about the show, and one of us said, "Hey, we should do a podcast about this," and then a couple years later maybe she hit me up and was like, let's do it, and we did it, and it's and then that led to this, and she was like, let's do, I have another idea for something else we can do. I want to talk about my favorite movie, because we became friends in the process, and just talked about other stuff besides the TV show and movies, and her favorite movies, my favorite movies, and just other ideas we had. People liked our chemistry and liked our banter, and we just wanted to keep it going. So that was the next logical step, was to talk about something else that we loved.
when you find a
Obviously,
good partner in
yeah,
conversation, as Alexandra and I have been talking for 40 years together almost. But when you find that other person to talk to and with, it's magic. It's magic, and
yeah.
it certainly shows in your podcast. How many episodes have you done? And tell us about the success of Scene by Scene.
It's going to end up being exactly 40 scenes total. I've mapped it out, I think. So I kind of
Yeah.
like that nice even number. But episodes in general, probably maybe like 45-ish, because we did a couple special episodes and
Mhm.
our intro and stuff like that. So not as much as some people might think, but
Considering how many years we when we started was the beginning of 2019, I
yes.
believe, and
Well,
so
April around
April,
Titanic
yeah.
time.
So it's almost been what, 5 years now. So
We took a 2-year break.
the
We took a
yearly
2-year break.
average is not great, but because we
Yeah.
took a break, yeah. But
I'd like to take a bit of credit for maybe booting you back into action, because we'd found out about you through our Titaniacs. And like, you've got to speak to Brittany, because she has a podcast and she's going scene by scene by scene by scene. And I kind of called you up and said, will you be in my film? And I don't know if that was like a reigniting of you going, we need to get back in the saddle.
Well, like I think I've talked to you off record about this, Alexandra, how it was like a perfect storm because Titanic was getting re-released for the 25th anniversary around the same time, and it was just pulling me back into it because I had taken a break because there was like a lot of just personal tragedy in my life over those 2 years that we went away. So I was just kind of taking time away from everything, and then like I hadn't watched or thought about Titanic in like those whole 2 years. I was just kind of taking a step back, and um yeah, you reached out, and then it was coming back in theaters, and it was just like, oh boy, like here we go, like I can feel it, like I'm coming back. It feels good because for a while it just felt like I couldn't really enjoy the things that I
Uh,
loved. It was a weird time to process
I think a
things.
lot of people would identify with many things in their lives that, it's time to take a break. But when you come back, it's this, you see things from a whole new perspective. And that's why I take so long making my movies, especially my first one. But when you have to take time, you also find things that maybe you wouldn't, and with the tone and the style of your podcast, I would like to say that I listen to it while I'm cooking, because I like
Mhm.
listening to podcasts. And I just, oh, there's a new one, there's a new one. And what I absolutely love about the depth and the breadth of your research, it's like listening to a mini PhD of each
Mhm.
scene, because you don't just go to James Cameron's commentary, and you go to the script. Let me refer to the script here. I think if you transcribed every episode and then signed up for a PhD program, they'd be like, come back in 2 years. You're like, oh no, I've done it already. I've got it right here, because nobody can argue with what clearly comes from your passion and goes into the minute detail. You find the actors in every part of the frame, which of course is wonderful for us because we're those actors. But talk a little bit about that. How when you started, you were like, we're just going to kind of step through the film. But come on, you go really deep into each moment.
Well, I think first of all, like it's just one of those movies where there's just so much. And I think we had talked about it as of recently, like when we came back from our break, I feel like we just got a little better at it, kind of. Just because taking that time away, um, I don't know, I feel like we kind of like, or at least maybe I don't know, sort of just like grew up a little bit with my process, I guess. But I was always a big heavy note taker with the podcast. I have um, what's it called? I got it right
Oh yeah,
here.
she writes a lot of
My
notes.
whole notebook,
Color
is
coordinated.
indexed, color coordinated. I have
That's your
everything.
PhD. That's your dissertation, love.
Yeah,
It's a
everything
dissertation.
handwritten and color coded and highlighted, and so
Well, and you're a teacher, so that fits right in with
yeah,
your personality, right?
yeah, I guess.
A teacher and a very talented musician. And Ethan, you're a film critic. So this is
Yes.
like this perfect balance of, I mean, I'm not to say that you aren't quite as passionate about the film itself as Brittany, that kind of comes across, but you're like Doctor Who's assistant, where, he's always explaining stuff and you ask a question and it takes you to the next bit. So you delve a little bit further in. So you're not quite as dyed in the wool. Where's your place
But
in
both
Titanic?
scholarly.
Yeah, yeah. I like to think of us as like sports commentators. Like I'm the color commentator and she's the play-by-play maybe and a little crossover. But no, what was sorry, what was the what was the question?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my waffling. It's that you don't just come to Titanic as a singular uh moment in film history, because you are a film critic. So you're kind of also, you bring in like film history and comparing it to other moments or other James Cameron films, which again broadens the scope of the podcast and what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I've always been drawn to films that are unique. And what movie is more unique than Titanic? Really, like if you look at it, film history across from since the beginning. And it's a seminal movie for a reason, and it did so many things. It borrows, obviously every movie borrows from its predecessors, like they should, um, because we learned from our forefathers. Yet it takes the chances that it takes because it has a brilliant person at the helm of it, and that's James Cameron. And I think anyone who loves movies has to. You can't deny that Titanic is a great film, and it's one of the greatest ever. Because that would be denying just artistry and what makes movies so magical and transcends film to culture and to just passion and enthusiasm and bringing people together, and it's perfect. Yeah.
And taking it
To me,
scene
it,
by
it would be
scene.
denying common sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You could say that too. Yeah.
But I was going to say, taking it scene by scene, what is either on air or off air? What is the scene you each get asked about most frequently, or that people will say, "Oh, that scene is my favorite," or "What do you know about this particular scene?" Is there one particular scene that you get asked about?
When I tell people who maybe I don't talk about movies a lot to, they say, "Oh, the Jack could have fit on the door." Like that's they always bring that up. But like on a deeper level, people who do like the movie, yeah, I don't know if there's a specific scene. I'm sure Brittany, you have more experiences with that.
Well, it's interesting because at least from like, other fans of the movie that we've talked to, um, everyone has a different favorite moment. And it's so amazing. So the way we've had guests come on each episode to talk about their favorite scene. and it's their favorite scene for like a reason you maybe never even would have thought of, or like it's just for some reason this scene resonates with them. And that's been something that we started doing maybe like a little under halfway through the podcast. We started bringing guests on to talk about their favorite parts. I think was Liz our first one with First Class Dinner? I
Yep,
think she was.
I believe so.
And you know, our friend Liz Osmond, she's another person who also has Make It Count tattooed on her and had a whole journey with the film from when she was 7. And so there's just so much overlap too, which I love with everyone's stories. But yeah, I mean, the whole movie is like one big scene to me. Like
Yeah.
it's like you can't really choose a favorite moment. And from talking to other people, I mean, yes, people do have their favorite scenes, but um I think like when you say Titanic to someone, like I have a Titanic podcast, I tell someone, and it's always just like, oh, like it's just Titanic, you know what I mean? No one really ever zooms in on one particular thing, I think.
Well, when you saw the deleted scenes in, the special editions and everything, were there any that you felt, oh, I wish that had been in there? Like, do you feel that any of those scenes, like the one with Alexandra speaking, I wish that were in there.
It's so
That would have been
short.
cool.
So
That would
short.
have been cool. Yeah.
I maybe should have gotten a lifeboat as well, but somebody else ended up with that. And I maybe had a line too, but somebody else got that. Listen, it's showbiz. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still in that goddamn movie. I can
There you
say I
go.
was there.
You are a very prominent shot too.
I am glad they didn't go with the alternate ending though,
Oh.
with older Rose on the railing there. But
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's
Um,
interesting to see, isn't it? The process. Like, let's just film it. Let's have it. And this is very common, not in at my level, because you just film as much as you possibly can, hope you can use all of it. You get rid of very little because you don't have the time or the money. But if you have the time, it's lovely to. Can you hear my pug snoring? Is
I'm
that
hearing the
that's I was
dog.
wondering
We
what
have
that
to.
was.
We
Yeah.
have
That's why
to.
I keep,
It's not
why
my
I keep
stomach.
muting
It's her
myself. No, it's
dog.
why I keep muting myself.
I have a question because the scene that stands out to me isn't really even a scene; it's a shot. But because, as you know from the documentary, I have my favorite passenger, who isn't even mentioned in the film, is Milton Long, who was companions with Jack Thayer. So from the history of the history of Titanic, not the movie, Jack Thayer and Milton Long, to me, are strangely absent from the film. Those characters are not in the film. But the two guys kicking the ice block around after the Titanic, to me, that's Jack and Milton. So I don't know.
yeah.
That's what. So I wanted to ask you if you'd had any commentary or analysis of that scene, because I wanted to find out more about those guys.
That's interesting. I think I taught Ethan this word like headcanon or whatever, where it's like you like when something's canonical to like a movie,
Hmm.
like meaning like it's,
Ah,
this is accurate. But when it's not and you're just sort of like making it up, that's your headcanon. So
Yeah.
you headcanon that those two guys are
yeah,
Milton
but
and Jack.
I seem to recall that I think from Night to Remember, or one of the Titanic books, um, of historical accounts, that people were kicking the ice around. They
Yeah. Hmm.
underestimated the gravity of the situation, and that was an actual historic thing. But yes, I
Yep.
like to pretend it's Jack and Milton.
And
I
it's
love
cinema. I mean, it's great for the movie too. I mean, it shows because you know what's going to happen, and you're seeing these people do this, and it's like you have no idea what's in store for you just in a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be it would have been a great choice if it were fiction, you know?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
For me,
How,
it's
how,
not a scene, it's the moment the iceberg hits, because then immediately the score changes into high gear. It's like boom, boom, like the thriller level of the music and the sound. And now we're going down because the end. That to me is the most thrilling part of the last part of the film. Yes, we've discussed many times that all of the beauty and the costumes and everything is all the setup. You get to see the ship in its glory through Jack and Rose, walking through it, even through the boiler room. But once the iceberg hits, for me, I am if I'm watching the television, and I don't leave the television if it hits at that point, if I'm at that point, because I now have to watch it go all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So just yesterday, Sunday night, um, me and my coworker slash friend, she had never seen Titanic before.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
And so I found out about this, and clearly I'm like, I have to try to give the gift of Titanic to someone right now who has never seen it. And of course, she has to see it on the big screen for her first time if she can. And so my one of my local theaters here that I've seen Titanic at before in 35 millimeter, it was really a really special thing 5 years ago. They're doing it again on the 27th of this month, and I invited my coworker, but she had or has a um, prior commitment that's mandatory at the same day, same time. And I was crushed because I was like, when is she going to get another chance to see it on the big screen? But then suddenly,
Valentine's
ra
Day.
yeah, random showtimes started popping up this
Wow.
year. And there was one in Connecticut, which was 2.5 hours away from us in Boston. And I asked her, I said, hey, I got a proposition. Would you like to take a road trip with me to Connecticut on
Wow.
Sunday to see Titanic? Because this is your second chance now to see it on a big screen. And she was like, sure, let's do it. So we went yesterday, and like what you were saying, like with the sinking, she literally, like I could see her reacting to it in real time for the first time, which was just amazing. She was sitting like this in her seat, like she was stuck like this for like the whole
Oh
sinking
man,
sequence, the whole sinking
that's
sequence. And then
great.
with every little thing that would happen, I would see her like getting stressed out, like being doing this, like doing this. Like it was amazing. And of course she was full on tears by the end. And
Were you quite envious of somebody who got to see it for the first time? Because you never get a second first time. Was there something in you?
exactly. I mean, well, it's always kind of fun. Like you try to watch it through their eyes a little bit and try to see, because when you've seen it like well over 400 times, like me and so many other fans have, you kind of forget like the power of like certain moments because you're so used to it. And then, I see her like having this like visceral reaction to like these moments that I've seen, countless times, but it just keeps it so fresh when you try to see it that way. And of course, for me though, still, I was still shocked. I can't remember what part it was, but maybe a little over halfway through, I was like, "Oh wow, we're a little over halfway through." Like it still does not feel like 3 hours at all, no matter how many times I watch it.
Yeah, it goes by
I
Wow.
find
fast.
myself saying, like, get in the boat, Rose. Like, I'm suddenly Francis Fisher saying, get in the boat, Rose. But I think, well, maybe this time she will. And of course, that's never how it works out. But I don't know. What keeps it fresh for you, Ethan?
Um, I notoriously don't watch movies a lot on repeat, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Rewatch movies, I should say. And so I found that throughout my life, even my favorite movies, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is my favorite. Uh I kind of just every time I watch a movie, it's like a different experience because I like to wait a couple years between rewatches. So I think the thing that makes it the most fresh in my mind is just when you watch a movie this time and then you see a bunch of other movies that are, whether they're inferior or on the same level, and then you watch the same movie again, you contextualize it differently, and you're like, okay, well, I see how it influenced these movies, or I see how it kind of did this better than these movies, and so how it made me feel better than these movies. And so to me, there's so many things that Titanic does better than like thousands of movies. Whether it's the thrill or the romance stuff or just the special effects in the 90s. I mean, the stuff a lot of it holds up still, just
Mm.
in terms of how effective it is to a viewer in modern day, which is incredible.
Mm.
I
Like
was
my
just going to
friend
say
who
the
just
old
saw it.
special effects,
Yeah,
from the Barbara Stanwyck version or
yeah.
the old British version. The special effects are second. It's more
Mhm.
the story is so compelling that they'll last forever.
And the very nature of the Titanic itself as a ship, like it really happened, obviously, and I've talked about the museum ad nauseum, but you go to the museum and even though it happened over 100 years ago, you feel this connection to this real life event, and to watch it unfold on screen. There's not a lot of true stories that play out on screen and you feel like you're there, or you feel like you're a fly on the wall, or even part of the disaster.
I've heard you talk on the podcast about some of the deleted scenes that were actually too tragic, like the
Yeah.
death of Cora, the little girl, and you go into, well, we could have really twisted the knife here or really dragged you down, but you can see there was even temperance in the moments he did choose. Like we see the deaths of Fabrizio and Trudy Bolt and lovely Rebecca Klingler, mother at Stern, her imminent death, but some places he felt were a death too far.
Yeah, and I think he had the luxury of showing so much of what he wanted to show already, that I think he probably, more than probably most filmmakers, felt okay maybe cutting certain things out, because he's like, okay, I have to kill my darlings, but at least I got to show a lot of what I wanted to show. And I think that his vision and what resulted in the final product was, I'd like to think, is pretty close.
So if you don't like to rewatch a film, Ethan, if you guys know you're doing, we're going to do a podcast on this particular scene,
Hmm.
do you just watch that scene
Yeah,
to prepare? Just the one scene?
I'll rewatch a few scenes before usually, and then to get myself into it, and then yeah, that scene, and then sometimes I'll go a little bit after. But I like to keep it like really fresh, and I'll usually do it like the night before the day of, just to kind of like keep it in my brain. I watch a lot of stuff, so I don't want to have anything between when I watch it and when we're talking about it, in the middle there. So
Same. I just watched the one scene as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
I have seen Titanic all the way through, a few times, but yeah.
And in terms of, I'm interested because not only you're being Titanic aficionados, but professionally as a critic of the other Titanic films. Do any of, even like Raise the Titanic, or do any of them speak to you at all?
I've never seen I've only seen documentaries. I've never watched any of the older movies. The what was the one from the 50s?
A Night to
The
Remember.
Night to
Titanic with
Remember.
Barbara Stanwyck,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Oh,
A
and
Night
Night
to
to
Remember is
Remember.
great.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Ethan, I think you'd really like A Night to Remember. It really is an extraordinary film. It's almost
yeah.
shot by shot what the book is. So it starts almost from it's striking the iceberg, but it's quite an amazing feat for its age and for
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
special effects.
I definitely want to watch both of those. Especially, I mean, the Barbara Stanwyck one too. I just watched Babyface, and I was like, man, I gotta watch the Titanic one. Babyface is great. But yeah,
And Cameron really does honor Night to Remember with so many shots. I mean,
that's what I've heard.
once you see Night to Remember, you'll be going, that's where he got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I should have primed myself before, but it's too late now, I suppose.
It's never too late. It's never too late. It's like
Yeah,
it's you can. Titanic is an old friend. Like Brittany, you were saying about when you're taking a break, Titanic will always be there for you.
yeah,
Take as much
Yes.
time as you need. Titanic will be here when you get back. It's really magic.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
it was, I mean, I'll never forget the first time, the first viewing back after that 2-year break was in IMAX. And I was like just one of like four people at an advanced like little IMAX screening at like 12 noon on a Thursday. And it was almost just like a private IMAX screening for me for my first like, you know, jump back into Titanic, and 5 minutes in, I was already hyperventilating. I was like, "Oh gosh!" I was like, "Here we go."
Can I ask you what experience you had when you saw Ship of Dreams, not yourselves not being in it, notwithstanding, just to see that there are all these people who see the film from all these different perspectives. That's what still sort of excites me about this subject.
And even when we talk to people about their different favorite scenes, it's always for like a wildly different reason, whether it's just something that they can't get out of their head all these years later, or it's something that they quote all the time, or something that they just cry every time they watch it, or whatever. It's just everyone has a different reason why they love their favorite scene, and everyone has a different reason why they love Titanic,
I
watches.
You
think
mentioned the Disney show. Do you
I
have any other entertainment outlets, whether it's TV or film, that you're never going to compare to Titanic, but that you're similarly obsessed with, either one of you?
um
T-shirt aside.
I don't know.
Back to the Future, definitely.
Yeah, you love that, yeah.
Yeah, and Star
Um,
Wars, as you can probably see a couple of my
oh
books
yeah, I
right now.
got
Jaws always moves me. I'm always
Jaws is
amazed
great.
by and what the impression that made of me when I was 11. We had to sneak into the theater because we weren't really old enough, and just the jump scares in that are very good. And
Mm,
when I see it, it's amazing how dialogue sticks in your brain because there was no VHS to rewatch it and rewatch it. So when you
yeah.
watch something once when you were very young, and then there's certain sequences and certain, this is no boating accident, and you're going to need a bigger boat, and all those things that people are now in the lexicon, but they just dug right in right from the first viewing. It's
I, w-
fantastic.
I was reading I'm in the middle of a Pauline Kael book right now. It's kind of compiles a lot of her essays, an old film critic, if for those who don't know.
Oh, yeah,
And
not that well. Yes, old. So that's why I know
yeah.
her.
And I mean she's great. She has a very unique style of writing, but she said
Indeed.
something, and was something I read today actually, that a lot of times we revisit these things that we loved when we were young, and sometimes we don't always agree with our opinion of it as art when we're older, but we are still drawn to them more because we love the fact that what we loved back then and what we love now is still the same, and it kind of is the through line of what connects us to our childhood and what connects us to our youth and what we loved back then. And it's so cool how that's how nostalgia works in these mysterious ways, right?
That totally resonates. I haven't. It makes perfect sense that
Hmm.
and again, all of the Titanic fans that we speak to, it goes back. It's almost always somebody who saw it when they were really quite young. 6 is an optimum age. 11 is an optimum age for some reason. That keeps coming up. That I saw it when I was this age, and it just blew my mind. That was it. I was completely connected
And
to
Brittany,
everything
how
about it.
old were you when your mom said you could go?
well, it was like I was 5. I saw it when I was 5. Because I would have been, let me see, 93. Yeah, so I was 4 in 97, so I saw it by the time it was on VHS in 98, I must have,
Did
so.
her love for the film continue?
Oh yeah, she still loves it. I mean, obviously no one in my family loves it like me, but um but yeah, so but there were so many things I was thinking, like Alexandra, you asked how, it felt to see all the other people in Ship of Dreams talking about it. And that's honestly one of my favorite things about Titanic fandom, or like fandom for anything, is fan reaction and fan feedback and fan stories. Because it kind of, number one, it sort of just makes you feel like you're not alone, and there was like this special thing that connects so many people around the world. Um, and yeah, especially for Titanic, it makes me so emotional to hear from other people. And I was just rewatching, just as like an example of how, the documentary made me feel as well. But like just the other day, I was rewatching Reflections on Titanic, which was the little retrospective documentary that came out in 2012 on the Blu-ray. And for the end credits, they showed like interviews with people who were seeing the 2012 3D re-release, like as they came out of the theater. And um, I was like, that was almost making me more emotional than
Mhm.
anything else. Like just seeing the wide range of people. It was like people of all walks of life, like coming out of the theater and being like, that movie means the world to me. Like it is such a beautiful movie. And then there was like a little girl, like probably 5 or 6, who she was like, I love the flying or whatever, right? Like her dad picks her up and she recreates it. And I'm like, I get misty-eyed like every time I see that. And then like just other people talking about how, they've never seen it before. This was their first time. They can't believe it. Like, oh my God, it's amazing. And yeah, it's just that just makes me so emotional to know that it's like, yeah, this is a really special thing. This isn't like you get so wrapped up in what it means in your own life that when you can take a step back and realize how much this means to so many other people as well, it's just like a very like overwhelming, very special experience.
That was definitely the discovery for me going through making the documentary. You know, I wanted to document the diaries people had written. That was important. I wanted to try and dig into the fans. Why? What is it about this film? And it just is. It just is Titanic. And I don't think it's important anymore I don't think it's important to make it a thing. It just is Titanic. It's the film, it's the history, it's the memory. It's, you know, it's a little bit how people revere the memory of the people who fell in the First and Second World Wars. It's at that level of tragedy that keeps drawing us in to movies about those two wars or about the sinking of this ship. And it's just a phenomenon that's just there.
Can you imagine any of the passengers who either perished or survived, but that all these years later, it would be a cultural phenomenon. Just their story would be a cultural phenomenon. And as we wrap this up, I'm so grateful to you guys for your analysis and your passion and your ability to share it with us through Titanic Scene by Scene. So I do encourage everyone to check it out, and we're so excited. I mean, Alexandra got you first for the documentary, but now we're all connected in this beautiful Titanic family that keeps expanding. So
as you were talking, Nelson, I was just imagining James Cameron somewhere in the corner in his office listening to Titanic Scene by Scene every time an episode comes out. Going,
Oh, I hope so.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I dream about.
That's a good point.
Jam Cam, as we call him.
Jam Cam.
I'm gonna go kick
thinking
some ice.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited. To celebrate Season 2 of Titanic Talk, we've launched a line of Titanic Talk merch. A cap, a mug, a tote, a t-shirt or a hoodie. You'll be sure to find a unique gift for the Titaniac in your life. Look for the link in the notes and on Instagram, or go to bit.ly/Titanic Talk Shop. And Nelson has a new book out. Dancing Between the Raindrops is a steamy page-turner full of all the tales Nelson can still remember from New York City in the 1980s. It's a coming-of-age story about friends in the era of big hair, padded shoulders, and punk rock. Dancing Between the Raindrops is available on Amazon, or ask for it at your local bookstore.